Hello and welcome to Daily English Stories and Podcast. I'm really glad you are here today. And I hope you are ready to relax and learn English naturally with me. This channel is a quiet place where you can slow down, take a deep breath, and enjoy simple daily stories without pressure. So get comfortable and let me tell you a gentle story from my life. One morning, I woke up earlier than usual because I had a small plan that felt important to me, even though it sounded simple. Because I wanted to buy fresh bread before work, and I wanted to start my day in a calm way. The weather was cool and bright, and when I opened my window, I could hear the street waking up slowly, with motorbikes passing, birds calling, and someone sweeping the ground near my building. I washed my face, made my hair neat, and tried to look awake, but honestly, I still felt sleepy, because my week had been busy and my body wanted more rest. Still, I told myself that small routines can save a tired heart. So I took my bag, checked my wallet, and walked out into the morning air. The bakery was not far from my home, and I had passed it many times. But I usually went there in the afternoon, when the bread was already less warm and the shelves looked emptier. That day, because it was early, the smell of butter and sugar seemed to float through the street, and it pulled me forward like an invisible hand, gentle but certain. When I pushed the door open, a small bell rang, and I immediately felt like I entered a different world, because the bakery was warm, golden, and peaceful, as if time moved more slowly inside. Behind the counter, a young woman was arranging bread carefully, and the way she moved was quiet and focused, like she was doing something important, not just selling food. She looked up and smiled, and her smile was not the kind that feels forced for customers, but the kind that feels natural, like she was already in a good mood and she wanted to share it. I smiled back and said, "Good morning," and she answered, "Good morning. How can I help you?" And her voice was soft but clear. I looked at the shelves and suddenly felt confused, because everything looked good, and I wanted to buy everything at once, but my wallet would not agree with that idea. So I laughed a little and said, "I'm not sure, everything smells amazing," and she laughed too. And for a moment, the bakery felt even warmer. I asked her, "What is your favorite?" Because I wanted a simple answer. And she pointed to a tray of small croissants and said, "These are fresh, and they are my favorite today." I liked the way she said today, because it sounded honest, as if her favorite thing could change depending on her mood, the weather, or the morning. So I said, "Okay, I'll take 2. And then, because I was hungry, I added, "And maybe 1 sweet bread too," like I was giving myself permission to enjoy life. She put the croissants into a paper bag, and while she did that, she asked, "You want them warm?" And I answered, "Yes, please," because warm bread feels like comfort. While she warmed the bread, I looked around the bakery, and I noticed small things that made the place feel personal, like a tiny vase with flowers, a handwritten menu on the wall, and a small radio playing quiet music. The bakery was not big, but it felt cared for, and that care made me feel calm, as if someone had created a small safe corner in a busy city. Then she handed me the bag, and when I held it, the warmth passed through the paper into my hands, and I suddenly remembered something from my childhood, when my father used to bring bread home, and the whole house would smell sweet. I paid, and as she gave me the change, she said, "Have a nice day." And I wanted to say the same thing and leave, but for some reason I did not move immediately. I think it was because I felt lonely that week, even though I was surrounded by people, and her simple kindness felt like a quiet light. So I said, "Thank you, you too." And then I added, "It's always nice to come here." And as soon as I said that, I worried it sounded strange, like I was saying too much. But she smiled again and said, "I'm happy you come." And those words, although simple, stayed in my mind. I stepped outside, and the morning air touched my face, cool and clean. And I started walking toward work while holding the warm bag close to my chest. I told myself that I would eat the croissants at my desk, slowly, with my coffee, and I would let myself enjoy the morning instead of rushing. But before I reached the corner, something happened that changed my plan, because I saw an old man sitting near the sidewalk, under a tree, and he was holding a small paper cup in his hands. He did not look dangerous, and he did not shout, but his clothes were thin, and his shoulders looked tired, and he kept looking at people passing by without saying anything. At first I looked away, because sometimes we look away when we do not want to feel sad. And I kept walking, telling myself I could not help everyone. But after a few steps, the warm bag in my hand felt heavier, not because of the bread, but because of my thoughts. I remembered the bakery girl's smile, and I remembered how warm the bread felt, and I thought, if warmth can reach me, maybe it can reach someone else too. So I stopped, turned back, and walked toward the old man, even though my heart beat faster, because I was not used to doing that. When I stood in front of him, I did not know what to say at first, so I said the simplest thing, "Good morning," and he looked up slowly, surprised. His eyes were tired, but they were gentle, and he nodded a little, like he was thankful that someone spoke to him like a normal person. I opened my bag, took out one croissant, and offered it to him, and I said, "Please," because I did not want to make it complicated. For a second he did not move, as if he was not sure if it was real, and then he took it carefully with both hands, like it was something precious. He said, "Thank you," in a low voice, and I said, "You're welcome." And for a moment, we were both quiet, listening to the city around us. I wanted to give him more, but I also knew I needed breakfast too. So I gave him the sweet bread as well, and I said, "Take care," and he nodded again. Then something unexpected happened, because he smiled, and it was not a big smile, but it was real, and it changed the air between us. He said, "May you have good luck today," and I laughed softly, because his words felt like a small blessing from a stranger. After that, I walked away, and the bag felt lighter, and my heart felt different, like it had more space inside. I did not feel like a hero, and I did not feel proud in a loud way, but I felt quietly grateful, because I realized kindness can be small and still matter. When I arrived at work, I sat at my desk, drank my coffee, and ate the last croissant slowly, and it tasted even better than before, because I felt peaceful. All morning, I kept thinking about the bakery girl, because without her warmth, I might not have turned back, and I might have stayed inside my own world. In the late afternoon, after work, the sky turned soft and orange, and I decided to walk back to the bakery, not because I needed more bread, but because I wanted to thank her in my own way. When I entered, the bakery was busier than in the morning, and the shelves were lower, but the smell was still sweet and comforting. She was there again, moving quickly now, helping customers, packing bread, and answering questions. But when she saw me, she still smiled. I waited until the line became shorter, and then I went to the counter and said, "Hi, I came this morning," and she nodded, like she remembered. I said, "Your croissants were amazing," and she laughed, and she said, "I'm glad you liked them." And then she asked, "Would you like more?" I shook my head and said, "Not today." And then I looked at her and said, "Actually, I just wanted to say thank you." She seemed surprised and asked, "For what?" And I said, "For your kindness this morning." It made my day better, and my voice was honest. She was quiet for a second, and then she smiled gently and said, "That makes me happy." And she looked a little tired, but her eyes were still warm. As I walked home that evening, I thought about how strange and beautiful life can be. Because sometimes the most important moments are not big events, but small human connections. I thought about the old man's smile, the bakery girl's warm voice, and the simple feeling of holding warm bread in my hands. And I promised myself something small but real, that I would try to be kinder. Not in a dramatic way, but in a daily way, because daily kindness is easier to carry. That day was not perfect, and my life did not suddenly change, but my heart felt softer. And that softness made the world feel less heavy. Thank you for listening to Daily English Stories and Podcast. I hope this story made you feel calm and warm inside. If you enjoyed it, please follow the channel and come back tomorrow for another gentle English story. One story a day is enough to help your English grow slowly and naturally. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.